What's up, guys? So today's episode is going to be a follow-up to the 2022 Worlds podcast that we did. I'm still that whole experience. I felt like when I came back from it last week, I was in a complete funk, and I wasn't the only one. I felt like everybody told me they were in the same situation because you remember last week,
Yeah.
I was just out of it, and even when I was talking to you guys on the podcast, I was kind of out of it. But I was talking to the other guys that competed, and all of us were kind of just like just in a funk last week. I mentioned to the guys this morning, and one of them was, he said, I'm glad I'm not the only one, that had that. So,
Yeah.
and again, we're all like seasoned competitors. It was just for whatever reason, that one just took it out of a lot of us, or took it out of us for some reason. And so getting into it, I'm still going through and digesting everything from the podcast. I'll be doing a breakdown of the videos of the actual matches, which will be available up on the Patreon for you guys if you want to get a hold of those. So for those of you guys that are Patreon members for the podcast, you'll have access to that. If you're not a Patreon member, you can do so by going to the Patreon at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And then I'll also have it as a part of one of my products. I got a product called the Gold Medal Game Plan. If you guys have access to that, if you're a member of that product, I'll be putting some notes in on that as well, so you can see the video. So one of those two places, you'll get access to the full breakdowns. I'll be doing a YouTube video as well. The YouTube video will be more about the stuff that we're doing here, which is more of like some of the emotional roller coaster stuff, or just some of the tips that you can take away from it. Not so much of the specific like technical things. And the reason, obviously, in a podcast, it would be incredibly hard to talk about. And I think you can get more from it from other things. And so with that said, that's what this podcast is going to be about. I hope this is useful to you guys. As always, thanks to our sponsors for helping make this podcast happen. Charlotte's Web. If you guys want to check them out, you can go to Charlotte's Web's website. It's always weird to say Charlotte's Web's website. It feels like there's I shouldn't be plural, but it is. Their website at charlottesweb.com. And again, I encourage you guys to take a look at their products and see if anything interests you. If you've ever been interested in taking CBD, and I share this with you, a lot of people have never tried the product. Some people have. I was one of those people where when I originally heard about CBD products, it was probably back in like 2013 or 14, and it just sounded like snake oil. I was like, it's probably some silly stuff. And then I eventually used it because one of my friends rubbed a balm on me when I was down in Costa Rica, and it worked really well. And I was like, well, let me try some of the CBD stuff out. And then I actually tried using the tincture, and I felt a big difference from it. Is for a multitude of different things, especially when you're talking about like going back to like the training for 2000 to the Worlds.
Yeah.
As far as like dealing with like sports induced inflammation and how I feel when I'm rested and everything else, I feel like it definitely makes a difference. But that said, everybody's body responds to supplements, drugs, compounds, everything differently, right? For instance, like I'm a lightweight, like when it comes to drinking.
Yes.
I did it.
Are.
Like when we had the Christmas party like last weekend, I had 1.5 old fashions. I couldn't do the second one. I was like, nope. I was like, I could feel I was getting a little funny. I was like, all right, that's where we're gonna stop. And so I have a very light tolerance, and I seem to be that way with pretty much everything.
Sensitive.
I'm sensitive to everything. I feel like I can use like the minimum dose and get the maximum like bang for my buck, whereas I know other people have to do things differently. And again, I've spread that stuff out, or shared a lot of it with my students, and a lot of them have noticed a difference as well. And so I encourage people to try it, see if they feel a difference. And if you guys would like to try their stuff out, get a discount and get a bonus, then here's the deal. If you go to their website, charlottesweb.com, use the promo code Jiu-Jitsu20 at checkout. Now, that'll give you 20% off the order, which is pretty sweet. Now, after you do that, send me an email or send me an Instagram DM with a screenshot of your order. If you do that, I will reply back to you, and I will give you a free, it's a sort of a bonus list of videos that I've never released before. They were originally supposed to be YouTube videos, but for whatever reason, they just didn't make the cut. Some of them were because whatever I was talking about, I didn't post it in time and it became irrelevant. Sometimes the audio is a little off in some place, and I just forgot about the video, and I was like, I'll move on. So some of these videos are really good, but for whatever reason, they just didn't get posted. There's things like lifting videos, rolling videos, traditional, Jiu-Jitsu talking Q&A videos, and a lot of other cool stuff. And if you guys want to get access to it, it's 22 videos. You get access to it with whatever your order is. So if you make an order using the Jiu-Jitsu 20 code, send us an email, send me a DM, and I'll get it to you afterwards as a bonus. And also for any of you guys, I just mentioned this to you because the product is still relatively new. If you are someone that works in a job where you have to be worried about pissing hot during a test, check out their new product. It's called the Charlotte's Web Daily Sports Edge. It's certified sport by the NSA. NSF, sorry,
Yep.
NSA. It's like it's definitely not the NSA. The NSF, excuse me, and the NSF is a organization that is respected by USADA. So if someone's like in the UFC and they have to do a test, for, USADA is going to come piss test them. That company, USADA, says, "Hey, this product is safe to use." So that's a pretty big deal. And so check it out. I know that I don't know if that test would apply to you, but their testing standards are pretty stringent. So check them out, charlesweb.com. Again, promo code Jiu-Jitsu20. Also, thanks to our sponsor, Epic Roll. Epic Roll is a jiu-jitsu brand company that makes really cool stuff, and it's made by a jiu-jitsu black belt who, again, he's within the community, he makes cool stuff. I'm currently I'm getting ready to send him a message to go ahead and get the next batch of jiu-jitsu stuff designed out because I want to get that going with him. Back last year, we had him do a set of rash guards and shorts, and I really liked them. I really like his nogi shorts. They're not too short, they're not too long, they fit really well, and they're super comfortable, and they don't have any of the Velcro that gets worn out. And his rash guards fit really well too. So again, I really like the quality of everything, and so he's the guy that I go to with the nogi stuff. And so we'll be doing another batch of those coming up here in the near future. So if you want to get your hands on those, keep your ears and eyes open for that. But again, if you haven't been to his website before, I encourage, if you want to get some jiu-jitsu gear, either for yourself or maybe someone else that you know that's really into jiu-jitsu, go on his website at epicrollbjj.com. He has tons of really cool stuff, really cool designs. The t-shirts, the gis, the rash guards, the shorts, everything's high quality. There's nothing in there that's going to be a lame duck. There's nothing in there that I wouldn't wear either. I wouldn't, what's the word I'm looking for? There's nothing on his website that if you ordered it, I wouldn't be confident that you would be happy with what you got, right? If you looked at it and you said, I like that design, the quality that you're going to get, you're going to like it. And again, that's why I have no problem with advertising this stuff, because Matt sends me stuff all the time. I like it. I wear it in my matches. I rock his hoodie when I'm getting warmed up for my matches as well. So again, check out all his stuff. Again, the website is epicrollbjj.com, and the promo code is Jiu-Jitsu, and it's for 15% off. And you can do that whenever you want to get some new jiu-jitsu gear, or for someone else you might know. And also, guys, we have a new sponsor. New sponsor is NordVPN. I'm sure you've heard of them. I've heard of them. They sent us a message and asking if we were interested. And it's something that, like, I've been thinking about this for a while because of the fact that I talked to one of my buddies. He's like a tech guy, right? And he was giving me some different things because he's really into it. I'm not. I used to be really into tech stuff. Like when I was a kid, I used to build my computers and everything else. Now, not so much. I just don't have the time for it. But I was asking him, I was like, what's some stuff that I need to do to be safer when I'm out and about and when I'm using my computer, my phone, whatever? Because again, you think about this, we're always essentially connected to the internet. We're always connected to other people all the time. And there are nefarious people that want to take advantage of that. I even had a buddy of mine, another techie guy, who set up these, I don't know what he was doing. He was basically setting up this thing that would create essentially create a hotspot that then if you connected to it, he could steal your information. He didn't want to do anything with it. He just wanted to see if he could do it because he was just curious. Because basically what he did was he worked in the field of like security.
Yeah.
And so he would try to see what he could do to like do the not secure stuff. So then he could go like and say, well, here's how we're working around this, right? And so again, one of those things that both of those guys have talked about is the idea of when you get into these like public Wi-Fi places, where you connect with it with your phone or with your computer and stuff, and you're connected to a public setting, it can be a very dangerous place for you if there's someone on there knows what they're doing, and they want to take your information, your data, or whatever stuff is going on. And so the NordVPN, one of the cool things that it does is it encrypts all your data coming through there. Now there's a ton of different usages for it, but for me, that's the biggie, right? Is that like when I'm traveling, when I'm on an airplane or getting in an airport, when I'm at a coffee shop or whatever, whenever I'm doing these things, I can connect through the VPN because it's going to encrypt my data. And again, that means that I'm sure it's not impossible, but it's certainly going to be a hell of a lot harder to get to my information otherwise. And so for me, that's kind of a cool thing. And for the price, that was one of the things too. I never actually looked up any of these places. How much is this stuff? Like,
Yeah.
they've got prices as low as like 288 like it basically comes down to 288 a month.
Yeah, it's cheap,
bro. 288 a month, and like you don't have to deal with just imagine like some of your data being stolen. How much is that worth to you?
Yeah.
Again, it's just one of those things to deal with. There's also, like I said, there's all kinds of other kind of cool uses with it where you can you can essentially make your computer or whatever look like it's coming from a different country.
Yeah.
And you can see different things that you may not normally see, or even you can even watch movies and stuff you don't normally watch because you can have access to it. It's really interesting. But again, for me, the thing is the security aspect of it. So again, if you're someone that thinks that they would want to look into that thing, and so they've got a cool deal going on for Jiu-Jitsu podcast listeners. So here's how it works. If you get either the 1 year or the 2-year plan, you get 4 months for free, which is pretty cool. And you also get a money back guarantee for 30 days. So basically you could get the service, you could pay for it, you could be using it, playing around with it, seeing if you like it. If for some reason maybe you just don't like it, you don't feel like it's worth it, whatever, you can then get your money back again within that 30-day window. And so there's really no risk involved with it. So if you guys have ever wanted to try out a VPN and you want to do so and save some money right now, you can do so by going to their website at NordVPN. That's NordVPN.com, and then /Chewjitsu, CHEWJITSU. And when you order it from that page, you will be getting the discount, that 4-month free plus the money back guarantee. And it also supports the podcast, and you don't get your stuff hacked the next time you're at the airport. It's a pretty good thing, right? And guys, if you want to join my daily email newsletter, you can do so by going to my website at chewjitsu.net/join, JOIN. If you like the podcast, if you like the YouTube videos, you like the stuff I put out, you'll like the emails. The emails a lot of times will almost they're almost like a precursor to what you'll probably hear in the podcast, or sometimes in the podcast, I go into a little bit more depth on something in the emails, and likewise with the videos, you'll kind of start to see the ideas and the books that I'm reading and all this other stuff that then you hear about on the podcast. Sometimes there's a little bit more in-depth stuff though, and sometimes there's not. But sometimes there is. And so if you guys want to, again, a little bit more, you can go to that website I just mentioned, chewjitsu.net/join. And upon joining, by the way, this is something we're going to talk about in this podcast. You'll get access to, there's a few free ebooks you'll get, but one of the ebooks is a game plan guide, which will help you design your own game plan for jiu-jitsu, which is incredibly useful, whether you're just rolling in the gym and you want to be more effective, or if you want to be able to compete and be effective. Either one of those things, having a game plan and understanding how your game works is very important, and you can get access to it by that website I just mentioned. And so, guys, with all that said, let's jump into the podcast and let's talk about some of the takeaways, some of the important things that maybe you could consider for your next competitions that, again, I'm just sort of chewing over after the Nogi Worlds 2022. All right, guys. So let's get into these ideas with you. And again, I'm still working on a lot of these just because, again, I like to sort of crack open a experience that I've had in competition, then sort of, what's the word? Figure out all I can from it. So the first one, which was really instrumental, was the importance of drilling. A lot of times in jiu-jitsu, like when we're getting ready for a competition, a lot of people just want to train their faces off. They want to train hard. They want to battle each other out. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you need to get your drilling in. When you look at a lot of, say, wrestling programs, you will see them do a lot of drilling days. Sometimes they'll have some situational live work within those days. By the way, in wrestling, most of the time, you'll say live work opposed to rolling, right? They don't say rolling, they'll say like go live. So in a lot of wrestling rooms, you'll see that they do a lot of drilling. They'll have days that are dedicated to just drilling. And then they'll have like a live day once or twice a week.
Yeah.
And that's pretty common. And so that tells you something. These other programs that are generating these really explosive, rough, I mean, you roll with a wrestler, they're rough as can be. So obviously the lack of live work is not hurting them. So the drilling is important. Now, jiu-jitsu is a little weird because a lot of a lot of us can't simply dedicate our entire like week to training, like say a college student can, right? Where half their schedule is just wrestling or whatever their sport is.
Yeah.
But you still want to try to get some good drilling time in. And that was something that was really important for me and my student Brandon. Both of us went out his like we literally did all of our game plan stuff that we drilled. I remember I went out and had several moves that I was working on, and I used them in the tournament. And then his first match was up against a really tough 10th Planet guy from Richie Martinez's gym. Very tough dude. And we sort of watched him, or he watched him, and I watched him a little bit too. And we knew what his entry to his takedown was going to be.
So you watched some of his previous matches?
And we were both like, this is going to be a good, like, this is what he does. And then Brandon basically was like, well, here's what I think I could do to get a takedown. And sure enough, that was exactly what happened. Literally, like, I have video of him, me and him practicing hand fighting drills and me mimicking that. And that's what happened because that was the guy that we were really looking forward to.
How often do you guys do you do that specifically? And is that something you recommend people do? Like, because sometimes it can get kind of,
you can psych yourself out
a little crazy, right? Like, I always share the story of, like, when I went to Master Worlds, I had this guy that was a judo black belt, and he ended up pulling guard on me and threw me off because I was expecting him to try to throw me. So it threw me off completely. So it can kind of mess with your game. So how do you think, like, maybe incorporating knowing what your game plan is, seeing what their go-to maybe entry is, and making that all blend well?
As long as we're focused on how am I going to beat them with my moves, instead of being like, man, that person's got a really good something or other. Because if you get too lost in that, like, oh, this guy's really good at this, that's the problem. If you simply look at it and say, here's how I'm going to beat them with my game. But then also, this will go into one of our other tips, making sure that you don't get too focused on just that.
Yeah.
That might be something to throw into your mix, your opening, attack or whatever. But again, if that doesn't happen, you can't be so stuck to that. That's something that's very important for jiu-jitsu in general, is that you always have to be flexible. You can't get, sucked into just doing one thing. It's very tough to do that. It's very tough to change your game plans and stuff like that on the fly. So you have to be flexible, and you also have to be effective everywhere. So again, you can't get too wrapped up in just one thing. But when it really comes down to it, just about like saying, well, here's what I think might happen. And I guess maybe this kind of goes down to it. Like when you listen to, say, military generals, like I'm a big history geek, military history geek. When you listen to those guys talk, they'll say this in their own words. It's been said a million different ways, but basically, your battle plan will not survive first contact with the enemy. Mike Tyson was like, everybody's got to play until they get punched. Every plan that you make is not going to happen exactly. I mean, sometimes it does pretty well, but most of the time it's something's going to happen, and you have to expect that. You have to expect that your game plan is not going to happen, and that you're going to need to make adjustments. And so no matter how well you think this person going into it, you always have to expect the unexpected.
Yeah, no, I think that's like a great point, just because and what you're saying is just basically looking at their entries, looking at their grip fighting, and making it work for you. So Brandon had a specific, he's got so many takedowns, but he had probably had a go-to, and he used that to kind of formulate, I guess, a way to enter into his game.
Brandon looked at it and said, okay, here's what he does. What could I do that would counter this? And that's what he focused on. And that's what worked. And again, that came as a byproduct of drilling. And it sort of leads into the second sort of thing, right? The importance of knowing your game plan. Like, you got to know your game plan. Like, it's fine. You may not even use all your game plan techniques. That's okay. But you need to go into a match and you need to know your game plan. And that game plan needs to be well drilled. You can't go in there and just say, like, anything. Like the more and more you look at stuff, you just realize how much repetition plays a role. Even like, I didn't know this until I listened to this one book on audio tape. So I think it's the guy, Admiral McRaven. He has a famous speech.
About making your bed?
Yeah, making your bed and stuff like that. Yeah, the guy. Well, so he was like running sort of the SEAL teams or whatever. He was like the head guy, or one of the head guys that was running them during a period during the wars that we had in the 2000s. So when they did the Bin Laden raid, he was the one that was kind of helping orchestrate that. So what did they do? They got an idea of like what the layout was, and then they did their best to recreate it at a base, to recreate the exact, like a replica.
Yeah.
Right. And again, they didn't know the insides of every building, but they had a rough idea, based upon how buildings are made and stuff in those areas. And they built a replica.
Yeah.
And so for months, these guys are doing reps. They're getting in the helicopter, flying and dropping in the helicopter, doing over and over again, basically. And they were timing, okay, you got this many minutes to do everything and then get the hell out of there, because they were actually going into territory they shouldn't have been in, because I think they were going into Pakistan. And so they had this short little window, and they're really close to I think it was either the police station or some military base there. So they had to get in, and within several minutes, they had to be out of there.
Yep.
Okay. So it's all reps. So they're just getting reps in. And then, I mean, it's really what it's like. Okay, this is what we're doing. It's very, he was kind of saying like, a lot of times people watch a movie and it's just like, all right, guys, the guys grab the guns and everything's just improvised. He's like, no. He's like, that's not how it works. Mm-hmm. We get this plan in place. Everybody has their boring PowerPoint presentations and stuff. And then we rep, right? And then you think about that, like that's like jiu-jitsu. We have to we get our game plan together. Here's what I think is my best stuff going into this competition or whatever it might be. And now I'm going to rep it over and over and over again. And when Brandon and I were doing our drilling sessions on the days where I wasn't rolling, I mean, going to the gym, and we had, our moves, and really it was usually 3 moves within like an hour 20. And we would just go and we would set the timer and we would just go back and forth, take a water break, back and forth, water break. I mean, that's it. And it's very boring and monotonous, but man, you get really friggin' good at doing that stuff. You get very smooth at doing that stuff. Doing those techniques requires less thought, less energy, because your body, the more and more you do something, your movement, your body will figure out how to make it efficient. It's like one of those things where when you lift weights, for instance, lifting weights, you have to make sure that you stay inefficient at the movement. For instance, like if you're doing a pull-up, you'll start to, like, as you get tired, you'll start to like fidget your body to engage more muscles to make the movement more efficient. Like when you see CrossFitters doing that silly pull-up to kip, right? Yep. That is a much more efficient pull-up than me doing a strict pull-up, right?
It's more momentum involved. Yeah.
Well, right. But like, I mean, you can do way more of those. It is efficient. It uses less energy, right? But does it work your muscle out? No, it does, but not to the same degree if you were trying to build your lats up. So it's the same thing with like this. So when you do something more and more, you'll find that like your body starts to figure out how to make those movements more efficient. It takes less energy. You start to do it more smoothly, that sort of thing. And so by doing those, by getting your game plan in place and then drilling it, again, that gives you this little core of technical abilities that then are going to be really, really sharp for that competition. That's important to go into a competition because, again, oftentimes when the match starts, you want to be like a robot. You just want to be like basically doing the techniques, going for them. And then if you have to change a plan on the fly, it's easier to do so if you at least had a game plan to start with versus if you start the match off and from the beginning you have no clue what you're doing. That puts you in a really bad spot. Mm-hmm. And so, again, it's super important to have those things in place.
Yeah, the one thing about the repetitions and everything, it's like you're able to do that at kind of this. You start to develop like a flow state. Mm-hmm. You're like not consciously. You're there, but you're kind of not. So that's part of it. The other thing is like when you do these things and you like kind of fine tune these skills or these movements, you're able to do them with more variability. Mm-hmm. Meaning, like, what if your opponent gives you a different look or a different hand placement, you're still able to execute that technique pretty well. Obviously Brandon's going to give you a certain look every time or most of the time, but then like when you go against an opponent on the mats and they may do something totally different you don't expect, can you still execute your drill or your movement with them doing this different positioning? So
that's right. That's right. It's like, because when you get to the point where the movement doesn't require much thought, mm-hmm. then when they start to give you different looks, you have the bandwidth to make an adjustment and say, hey, they just did this. What else could I do? Yep. But if the movement is if it's still relatively foreign to your body, then your its whole bandwidth is just trying to put that move together. But like you said, then you're in a state where once you're doing a movement, you've done it so much, it's just like doing a repetition of a lift in the gym. When you first start doing, like, say, a squat or a bench press or deadlift, you might be focused on all the little muscle groups. Eventually that movement pattern, that motor pattern is just like, it becomes like one movement. Boom, you're just doing it.
Yep.
And then that allows you, then when you can do that automatically, then that allows you this other, like, sort of, it opens up the bandwidth where you can start thinking about all kinds of other stuff, or if you're like lifting heavy weight, there can be variability where when the stress is heavier on the weight, so to speak, then there may be some variability in that movement.
Yeah.
But it's okay because you built the foundation, the structure, and everything else to deal with it. Same thing with the technique.
Yep. And so let's like, what would you say your if you had to break it down to rolling, drilling, percentage wise, just say during the week, mm-hmm. say, we'll just say 5 hours a week or whatever, but like percentage wise, how much of that was specific drilling and how much of that was rolling?
About half and half.
Half and half.
So basically, like there'd be like I would have like sometimes a little. It could vary a bit, but like I would have Monday would have like an hour of rolling, maybe a little bit more, sometimes more, depending on what I wanted to do. We'll talk about sometimes why I wouldn't roll as much, but maybe about an hour rolling.
Mhm.
Tuesday be a little over an hour drilling. Wednesday, another hour of rolling plus. Thursday, hour of drilling. It would lean a little bit more towards rolling in some areas, but a lot of times it was a lot of drilling. And so for me coaching, I'm teaching sometimes, and so I could drill on those days sometimes, but a lot of times I have to teach, and so I would come in for my own drilling sessions separately a lot of times, just so I could get more reps in. And then towards the end, I was setting up rep sessions where I'm like, all right, guys, you're going to drill like me today. Follow along, you know what I mean, just so I can get some extra reps. And in those cases, my drilling went up. And then it was probably closer to 60-40.
Right. Yeah. That'll taper kind of as you get closer to the competition. You're going to taper off your rolling,
Yes.
and then keep your drilling. And it doesn't have to be maybe the intensity wise, doesn't have to be as crazy fast, but you're still, you're still getting the movement and keeping everything sharp.
Yeah. So like towards the beginning of like my training camp was probably 8 weeks out, was a lot of rolling. I was just basically trying to get my engine up, build my cardio up. And then it slowly increasingly with more and more drilling and a little bit less rolling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just keep your body from getting banged up too.
Mm-hmm. Which kind of leads to the next thing, which is it's the importance of taking days off during hard training sessions and during hard training camps. So it's something that a lot of times we as competitors and we as hard charging people, we can basically just get over it. Like we can just get through it. We can will ourselves through things. Every one of you listening to this, I'm sure, has had one of those days where, you didn't want to do something, but you did it anyway. And that's also the problem too, because there are those days where sometimes you're like, man, I don't want to do something, but you do it anyway, and you have a fantastic day. But you have to be careful if all of a sudden you're noticing that you're feeling that way and you've had a string of hard training sessions, one after the other, day after day, then it's like, hey, listen, just take a day off.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the reason why I bring this up is because, again, this is a lesson that I know, and it's still hard to deal with because of just what I just talked about, because most of the time you end up having a great session, and so you fight through it. But then there's those days where you go in, and I got sick right afterwards. So I was to the point where this was right when I was building my engine up, and I was training like twice a day. I was starting to cut my weight a little bit. And at the beginning of November, late October, I got sick. Probably got the flu, probably because it was going around at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's been going around for a little bit, but I got sick and I was down for about a week, and by down, I mean, like I was sick for like a day and a half or something, like a day, 2 days. And then then it progressively got better, but it was just like, I wasn't ready to train. And so then when I came back to it, I was like, okay, we're going to keep training hard, but let's make sure we have some rest in there too. And I actually increased my sleep. I was like, okay, like we're just going to like, I don't really have a trouble with sleeping anyway at this point. Like I don't set an alarm clock when I get up, but basically I was like, if I see that it's not 8 o'clock, I'm not getting up. Because sometimes I'll get up, it'll be 7, 6:30. I'm like, kind of, there's stuff I could be working on or
ready
whatever.
to go.
So I was like, no. During the rest of the training camp, if it's not 8 o'clock, I'm not getting up unless for some reason I can't sleep. And even if I can't, I'm just going to lay in bed. Most of the time I would just sleep. And a lot of times I get up around 8, 8:30. So I pushed my sleep schedule back a little bit because my body needed it.
Mm-hmm.
I was training hard. And so I needed that extra rest. I needed those days off and stuff like that. And I made sure that I at least took one complete, no drilling, no nothing, one complete rest day throughout the week. And a lot of times there'd be like during my drilling days, I wouldn't roll. And during my rolling days, I wouldn't do these hard drilling sessions, because the drilling sessions, when I'm doing them, like, I mean, my heart rate's getting up into the 160s, 170s. It's not like I'm just doing slow techniques. It's a fast drilling session.
Well, I think it's neurologically taxing too. When you're drilling a lot, it is mentally taxing. If you want to have good quality drilling, you have to be really focused on what you're doing.
So the next thing to share with you guys is the importance of having a supportive partner. This can mean a lot of things for you. It can mean obviously important for the training partners being supportive. It can be your like life partner, your wife or your husband being supportive. It can even, in some cases like me, be a business partner who's supportive. So like during training, I got to have supportive training partners that are there to, push me, but not get me injured, there to help me drill, things like that. Having a supportive wife for me, like who, again, I've got to spend more time at the gym. I'm coming home tired. I need her to meal prep for me sometimes, because usually I do my meal prep. I'm like, hey baby, I'm tired. Can you cook my chicken? Can you cook my rice here? I'm coming home. Can you get that stuff ready for me? You know what I mean? Like because again, she'll take care of me, whatever, if I need something. But again, I need a little bit more during those periods, and then even like, hey, I'm going to go to California, be gone for a week. You don't get to go. You okay with that? I mean, she could if she wanted to, but, she's like, it's fine. And then again, there's some things that can be difficult during periods of intense focus when you're doing something. And then your partner, like your wife or husband, having them basically say, I understand you're going on your little adventure right now. Do what you got to do, and just back off. That's super important because it's hard. It's hard to basically say, like, I'm not going to get the normal you because you have to focus on this instead. And then also with like a business partner, like during that period of time, like my output for the business is going to go down. The things that I do is going to go down because I'm not going to be able to keep up with my normal work pace because I'm tired sometimes. I'm like, man, I don't have it in me today and I just need a rest, that sort of thing. And a lot of my work, there's training work, but the training work really isn't what makes the business run. It's not like, I mean, that's the good stuff and it's fun. And obviously it helps make the business good and people come to classes, but the stuff that actually makes the nuts and bolts, the gym actually run, it's just not the training, right? That the training is like the end product. But as we all know, you could have a fantastic product, but if no one's coming to that product, if nobody knows about that product, there's a lot of stuff that goes on that I have to deal with. All that's creative work too. And so when my brain's fried, it's gone. And when you're done, when you did a hard drilling session for an hour and your heart rate was going through the roof, you need like half a day off before I can get back to normal. If I was a hard rolling session in the morning, I needed a half a day off. Yep. So I'm losing these half days to this stuff. And so again, having a partner say, listen, you do what you got to do, man, because you're trying to win this thing. That's important. So having supportive people around you in all these different areas is mega important. And even like, for me, like having this is something as a guy. And again, I don't know how it is for women, but for a guy, there's something really powerful about having a consistent partner who's supportive. Because like then like any like for every guy that's and women, obviously you guys are dating too. Like when I was dating like you puts you into a chase mode. You're like you're trying to be out there and like date people and stuff like that, and it takes up a lot of energy, a lot of mind power. Whereas like having like a consistent like girlfriend, boyfriend, wife, whatever, like then you don't need that all that energy that would go to the chase. That's gone. You don't need it anymore.
It goes to supporting each other.
It can go to supporting each other, or it can go to other things, right? Because again, you can support each other and take care of each other, but it could also be like, hey, I've got to go dive into this business. I've got to go do this competition, and I need you to support me. But I'm going to take all this chase energy, and I'm going to go chase this thing over here instead. It gives you it gives you more energy. It gives you can take that energy that you would use to normally chase other things, and you could chase it towards something else. I think it's really powerful. I think it's why you look at like a lot of, not everybody, but you look at a lot of successful people that I've met over the years. They had committed relationships, at least during periods of time where they were growing. And I wonder if that plays into it because you've got that there supporting you. You have a good supportive structure at home, and then it allows you to go out and be more aggressive towards other aspects of your life.
Yeah, you get to put that energy elsewhere. And I think you have to. And I think that's like, it sometimes is a give and a take. It's like, you got to understand, like for my relationship, I know that if I'm taking time away, that I put working on the front end or on the back end. Like when we went to ADCC, I've got 2 kids and my wife, obviously she works full time around the business. So I had to do some stuff on the front end. Like, hey, I got to make sure everything's in order with the house. Like I make sure that like everything's cleaned up. Like I've put work, I've spent time in, I've kind of almost like paid into that like bank a little bit or saved a little bit. Right. It's just my way of thinking. Because it's so hard, like with kids and stuff. Cause like, that's exactly the same thing, because if she's at home with the kids, she doesn't have time to step away and do things for herself or do things for the business that she needs to do. And I'm doing like, hey, I'm going to go chase this thing of like, I'm going to go experience this really cool event. And yes, it's for business, and yes, it's for like enjoyment. The majority of it probably is, but like I had to kind of like almost like on the front end, like front load the environment or the situation until I could do that. That was just for me. Like, but I mean, I think
it's for a lot of people that have kids and stuff like that. You kind of like have to basically put up an offering to your partner to be like, look, I'm going to go do this thing. I know this is going to be a pain in the butt for you.
Right.
Here's my offering to you.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And we all do that, you know, like guys will jokingly, especially with our wives, like, we'll like, look, I'm gonna do something for her now. So this way I can take this later on.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like, it's fine.
Yeah, but you have to kind of set the I'm not like doing it and then like sneaking up on them. Like, hey, this is the game plan. This is how we're gonna figure it out. Somebody asked me, like I think it was like on Instagram, they asked me like how I manage or like how I balance like my life, my jiu-jitsu, and then full work, and then blah 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 life and all this stuff. And it's like it's multifaceted, but a lot of it is like I have to plan. Like you have to plan and set expectations. Like, hey, this is what my week's going to look like, or this is what my month's going to look like if I'm going to go on this trip.
Yep.
And I start planning, you know, months ahead of time to try to like really get things figured out. Like you know, for us with the podcast, sometimes we have to plan ahead to make sure everything works fluently. We get the episodes out on time. We have to kind of adjust, and
you can't just wing it.
You can't. If you wing it, it does not ever work out. It can work out in the short term and long term. It just doesn't pan out because eventually shit goes wrong. Yeah,
it's gonna be way more stressful.
Yeah, and then your product that you're trying to produce, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a business, whether it's, you know, product, it's not going to give that full, you know, your full effort.
That's right. Another sort of takeaway from this thing was the importance of proper diet, nutrition, rather than like water cutting, weight cutting. What I mean by this is when you say weight cutting to someone, people think of like these brutal starvation diets for a short period of time to get down to a weight class.
Yeah.
I can tell you, for someone who's done that before, unless you like are doing maybe like if you're doing a competition or whatever that allows you a 24-hour recovery, maybe a little bit can be done. But I can tell you that, especially for jiu-jitsu, most people, not all, but most people have a bit of fluff that they could lose. I mean, rarely do you come across a jiu-jitsu gym and every person is just shredded to the gills. Most people have a little weight they could lose. So if you're not at that point where you're shredded to the gills and the only thing that you can really lose is either muscle or water, well, then you need to get on a diet. I mean, and we're also talking about a sport where there is no real advantage for being overweight. You're in a cardiovascular intense sport. So being lighter is going to be more advantageous to you, because I mean, again, if you're carrying around essentially, you know, 5 pounds, like a couple of jugs of milk in your stomach or body, you know, just this weight sloshing around, that's what you have to move around. It weighs on you.
Yeah.
You know? And so again, if there's nothing wrong with, you know, enjoying the holidays and letting a little weight, you know, pack on or whatever. I'm doing that right now.
You are? How much you put on since the tournament?
I haven't weighed myself since I got back, but when I was leaving, I'd gained about 6 pounds. I gained about 6 pounds in a week. You know, again, a lot of it's going to be water weight, just from eating different foods and stuff like that.
Well, you're not training nearly as hard. You know, you're not like, I mean,
yeah, not like I was.
Yeah.
But again, a lot of times it's not even the training that matters; it's the food.
Yeah.
I mean, people, again, I've talked about this before. People overestimate how many calories they're burning. Yep. People they think they're burning 6,000 calories. I'm burning 1,000 calories at a jiu-jitsu session. No, you're not. You're not burning 1,000 calories. 1,000 calories, you're almost getting to the point where you could get someone to survive, unless your training sessions are just absolutely brutal. And for 1 hour, as soon as you step on that mat, your heart rate is just flying through the roof. You're not burning 1,000 calories. You're just not. I mean, and again, you could judge this by finding your maintenance and then bump up 1,000 calories, or excuse me, get to your maintenance. And then just add a couple hundred calories to that. You're going to start gaining weight, because again, you're not burning 1,000 calories. So anyway, going back to it, I think that a lot of people would do really well. And this is something that I've preached about it, and a lot of my students have taken advantage of it, but getting someone to write your diet or nutrition for you. You don't have to do it forever, because a lot of times you'll start to learn how the whole process works, and you can become very good at it, because it's very simple stuff. It gets one of those things where it's a big deal in the beginning, but a lot of times it's just little small things like weighing your food and then slowly reducing calories and stuff like that over a period of time. But I just think it's super important, because I can tell you that when I was at the competition, people were looking at me like, "Oh man, Chewy, you're looking lean." And I'd look at them and say, "Well, I'm skinny Chewy right now for the competition." And I cut weight for the competition. I was at my weight 2 weeks prior, and I rolled in at my weight. I didn't have to starve myself. Everything felt great. When I got to the competition, I went to my Airbnb, made meal prep. I ate all the same foods. I went into the competition. I felt fantastic. Felt great. Opposed to trying to cut weight, cut water, and then feel like crap, having that weigh on me because you're worried about not making weight, whatever, having to run around in sweats instead of being able to simply relax and have all of my energy focused on my opponent. And again, if it's an IBJJF style tournament, you don't have time to rehydrate. So you're going to go into your match unhydrated. You're not hydrated well, dehydrated slightly. Whereas with me, I woke up, I had 2 meals, because I didn't compete until about in the afternoon. So I had 2 solid meals, tons of water, had coffee. I mean, I enjoyed my morning. I was having a great day. I was sitting there reading for a little bit and just relaxing, doing all the stuff that I normally do. Nothing had to change. Mm-hmm. And I went in there and competed. It felt like another day of really hard training. It was harder than training, but I mean, it was like the same sort of rhythm. I had my meals, had my food, had my water, everything else. Yep. Went and trained and went to the competition. I think it's super important because I saw guys killing themselves trying to make the weight. I saw people where they were having to, after Thanksgiving, you go to the brackets and the brackets are yo-yoing around because, because people had to move their weights up because after Thanksgiving, it was like the next week, they were like, it's the last week to adjust your weight class. So people are having to adjust because they ate too much Thanksgiving food. And so I just say that's been one of the most important things that I've done in the last couple of years. And it's something that I don't have a lot of regrets in life, but one of my regrets is not having a diet nutrition type person work with me. Mm-hmm. And so I would encourage anybody, find someone that does that kind of stuff and work with them. We're going to have my buddy Eli on the podcast sometime, probably in January, maybe early February, and we'll talk about some of this stuff and some of the stuff that he does that it can be very useful. So hopefully that'll be useful to you. But again, find just someone that can help you with that because it's incredibly useful.
Yeah, I think the most important things, like for me, if someone that doesn't really, I kind of keep a certain weight. I just stay around a certain weight, but like if you're adjusting your weight, for me, the most useful tips that you shared are, first of all, get down to that weight early and see how you feel. Yeah. So give yourself at least a couple of weeks to train and be at that weight. The other thing is you're not stressed about making weight when you're there. There's so much other things to, like my Airbnb. I need to check in. I need to do this, that. I got to make sure logistically I know where I got to be, when I have to be there, and still get some training in while you're out there, still keep up with your training. So you have so many things to think about. Having your meals, like, already know what you're going to have. It's kind of like a game plan for your jiu-jitsu, right? It's a game plan for your diet. You already got it. It's all locked in. You know what you're doing. You know what your game plan is going to be. Again, you can adjust it if you need to. You're a little low or a little high, but you know how to do that. So, I mean, I think that's so valuable. And yeah, everybody sees, like, I think in MMA, they see these people doing these crazy weight cuts and like, oh, that's the way to do it. These are the elite of the elite. These are the highest level athletes. In jiu-jitsu, obviously you don't weigh in 24 hours before, plus you weigh in maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes, even less, or even right before you go in the bullpen. A lot of times you'll weigh in. So
yeah, also, like, again, here's something to think about. Just because someone's doing it doesn't mean that it's the smartest thing to do. Yeah. I mean, I can tell you for a fact, I've seen UFC fighters, guys who fought in the UFC, do the absolute dumbest crap when it comes to weight cutting. And you're like, you guys are at the top of the top. Yeah. And you're like pushing yourself into kidney failure to cut weight. It's not necessary. It's just not necessary. It's the reality of the situation. And again, when it comes down to it, unless you are shredded to the gills and your body fat is incredibly low, there's no need to water cut. Unless you have that 24-hour weigh-in, and even then just make sure that we keep that water cut relatively low. And there's ways to make that a little bit easier, like overhydration and stuff. But again, if you're trying to drop like 20 pounds or something, or even like 10, 15 pounds, whatever, and it depends on your body weight, 7 to 10 pounds on a 130-pound person, that's a big chunk of your body weight. 220 pounds, it's not a big deal, really. You might lose that in a hard training session. So you just have to be mindful of that stuff. And so again, unless you're shredded to the gills, probably your best bang for your buck. And honestly, you trust me, if you're a little overweight or a little thick, been there before, I understand, but you will probably move and feel better. Your cardio will go higher if you simply get on a better diet. And if you're eating kind of crappy food anyway, you will feel so much better when you train. You'll get a boost in your cardio just because your body's not having to process all the junk. Just the way it is. And kind of going back to the eating the same foods all the time, it's a productivity tip. Yeah. If I know what I'm eating every day, I don't have to think about it. It's like I wear the same clothes, I eat the same foods. I can worry about stuff that has a lot more variables or stuff that I find that I need to worry about. I don't have to worry about what am I going to eat, what am I going to, that kind of stuff.
We had one bonus idea that we wanted to talk about. It was kind of different.
Yeah, so
a little bit of a different idea.
Here's the bonus one. I got more of these. We'll probably do on a different podcast, guys, or I might do it into a video at some point. The bonus one is that you should get, or the importance of getting lost during or in between your matches. So the importance of getting lost in between your matches. What do I mean by this? So a lot of times let's go to wrestling. Wrestling, you will get guaranteed a certain amount of time in between matches. It's literally like they have to give you a certain amount of time. And I remember in high school wrestling, there were a bare minimum of 45 minutes.
Between matches.
Between matches. So I remember because what they would do is they would run quarterfinals, say for every weight class, start at the smallest weight class, work up to the heaviest. Then they would go to the next bracket, like semifinals, and they would just go down the list. So you get all those matches in between. And I remember back in high school, there was a guy who, he had a watch going. Someone said, "Hey, you're up." He's like, "I didn't have my 45 minutes yet." And he still had 10 minutes. So they gave it to him. They had to by law. I don't know if it's the same everywhere or whatever, but that's what it was back then. And in jiu-jitsu tournaments, if you guys have competed before, those suckers, they'll run you right one after the other. So here's what you do. This is what I tell my students. In between matches, just go walk away. Just go. I got to go use the restroom. I got to go do something. I feel a little sick, a little queasy. I need a few minutes. Say whatever you got to say. Get away from the mat. Go get some water, go walk off, go get some like, some dextrose stuff, put it in your system, whatever you want to do between matches. Go do what you got to do to recover. Then you come back. Then you do your match. I mean, I told a couple guys, I'm like, well, at one point they were calling me up and they're like, Chew, they're calling you. I was like, I'll be up there in a minute. They're not going to DQ me. They're not going to DQ me that fast. Just tell them to give me a second. I'll be up there. I need a second. You know what I mean? Because I was tired between a match. And so that's important because a lot of times if you're just standing around the mat, they will just run you. They'll just, oh, well, you're here. Let's put you in another match. So go get lost in between. Go take at least 10 minutes to yourself and then come back. And then, and if you need more time, try to get more time. You know what I mean? Make them, if you're really burned out from that match, if you had a really brutal one, make them call you to the mat. Make them say, "Hey, Eugene, we can't say your last name, Tozik, come into the mat." And make them say your name a little bit. It sounds like you're being a pain in the butt, and you kind of are, but it's just one of those things where if you had a really brutal match and then you have to run another one, you're not going to be at your best. So even just getting 15 minutes, that can make a big difference. It can make a big, big difference in between. Yeah. You can just think about imagine in your gym, if you had a really tough roll and then you had to roll another tough roll. Versus you had a tough roll and then you had a 15-minute break and then you had a tough roll, you're going to perform way better.
For sure.
And so again, that's something to keep in mind if you compete. Just in between your matches, just run off, go to the bathroom, and then take a walk. Kind of just get lost for a few minutes and catch your breath and walk it out, and then come back to the mat and get ready to compete again.
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense. Like they'll usually call you. They'll say so and so, come on, or you need to be a mat too. We're gonna start. We're gonna DQ you. And they kind of give you a couple warnings, like your last warning. So,
bro, the IBJJF,
just pay attention to it, obviously. But
of course, and I'm not telling you to wait till they're gonna DQ you. I'm just saying, most of the time you'll have a little bit of time. Don't be too worried about it. But at the IBJJF tournament for the Nogi Worlds, there was one guy, they were waiting almost an hour to DQ people. I was like, come on. My finals match got pushed up. Because the guy,
they're waiting on somebody.
Yeah, they're waiting on someone. I was like, come on, man. I was like, I want to roll. I want to get this over with because I need to eat before the open, which I didn't get a chance to eat before the open, which was a problem. And so, it's just a simple idea, but just go get lost. Go get lost for a few minutes. Go walk around, catch your breath, walk it off, get to the point where you feel like you're ready, and then come on back.
Yep.
All right, guys. So hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. Hopefully something in there was a takeaway. Even if it just means you just go make sure you get a walk after your matches and get the hell out of the arena for a few minutes. That's an important one, bro.
For sure.
I've had to tell guys that I'm like, get out of there, because guys are, the ring coordinators are sitting around and they're like, well, I guess, hey, rolling. You two want to go? I'm trying to get, they don't care about you. They're trying to get done with the tournament because they're tired. They've been here all day, so they don't care about you. So getting out of there and coming back again, you don't have to be excessive with it. You don't have to be on the last DQ call every time, but go catch your breath, get some rest in between. It's very helpful. That was something I actually, believe it or not, it was something that one of my coaches did for me when I was a blue belt. I was so exhausted after this one match, and they were getting ready to run me. It only been like 4 minutes. After,
Oh, wow.
4 or 5 minutes after my match, I'm like, you know, and I'm getting ready to go, and then like they came and like snatched my my gi top and my gi top and my belt. So I was like, huh? And so like he just pulled away and ran off, and I was like, I don't understand. They're like, hey, like, are you ready to go, Nick? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't have my gi with me. They're, where is it? I don't know. I'll find it, you know? And so I had to go find it, which he was just over in the corner. He just like wanted to make sure I couldn't roll. And so I had to go get it. And they gave me a nice little 15-minute rest, and it helped out a lot. I won the match. And again, I was thankful for that. And, you know, so we used to have a joke. We was like, go lose your belt. Go lose your belt and get out of there, you know? But anyway, with that said, guys, hope you enjoyed the podcast. And again, if you want to support the podcast, you can do so by checking out our sponsors. You can check out Charles Webb at their website, charleswebb.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20. Again, guys, with this right now, I'm offering a special thing for you. So a lot of you guys took advantage of it. So again, you know, thank you for trying it out. I hope you like the product. So if you go to their website and you go to Charles Webb's website and you use the promo code Jiu-Jitsu20, you will get their product for 20% off, which is very sweet, very great, good deal. It's a great deal. I was just telling Eugene what a great deal it is. It's the best deal. We got the best deals.
Multi-talented Chewy.
Oh yeah, here my impressions are just top notch.
We haven't had them in a while. Your impressions.
How dare I? But if you go and you get that deal, afterwards, send me an email to my support email, which you might have it if you have bought any of my products or anything like that, or you can send it to, I'll give Eugene the link to, you can send it to the Jiu-Jitsu email, the Jiu-Jitsu podcast email, or send it to me on Instagram. Any of those three will work. We'll send you a link back. That link will give you access to 22 videos that have not been released on YouTube or anywhere else. They were videos that I was supposed to put up at some point, but maybe there was an audio issue, or maybe something didn't get, the music wasn't okayed by YouTube or something like that, and so we couldn't monetize it, or just there's all kinds of random things. And so they're good videos. They're good question and answer videos, lifting videos, rolling videos, whatever, stuff that a lot of you would probably find interesting. And so if you want access to it, after you do that, send us the copy of the receipt, especially with the order number, and then we'll send you back that link with that 22 lost video special bonus. And then, guys, if you have not checked out their website before, go to epicrollbjj.com. If you're looking to get some new jiu-jitsu gear, get some new rash guards, shorts, t-shirts, whatever, any jiu-jitsu related stuff for the new year. If you're looking to get some stuff, check out his website, Matt's website at epicrollbjj.com. I like all the stuff. I'm going to be working with him soon to get a new batch of jiu-jitsu gear ready. And I'm also going to work with him to do a new Derby City rash guard, because I want to have a Derby City team rash guard. Awesome. Yeah, and I want to have a team rash guard. So I'm going to work with him too, because I like the designs he puts out. I like the quality of his stuff. And so again, I rocked it out at my Nogi Worlds performances. Yeah. I was wearing his stuff. I'm going to have all my students in his stuff, and it's because I like it. And so I have no problem sharing it with you. So if you would like to get some high quality jiu-jitsu gear that looks good, check out his website, epicrollbjj.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu for 15% off. Give it a look. Also, guys, as we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, we have a new sponsor, NordVPN. I'm sure you probably heard about them. For me, I was talking, as I'll kind of give you the abbreviated version, as I tend to be long-winded on the intros in the podcast. Yep. But the basic gist of it is, years ago, I've talked to a few of my tech buddies, and they had always told me that, like, there's a few things you can do to stay safe on the internet and keep your stuff as hidden as possible or as good as possible, right? When you're traveling and whatever. Well, one of the things that they said was get a VPN. And I was like, well, why is this so important? They're like, dude, like if you're at like a Wi-Fi spot that's public, bro, if someone knows what they're doing, they're just going to like take whatever they want. And again, it's probably most of the time not going to be a problem, but imagine the one time it is a problem, it's probably going to be a big issue. And so again, one of the things that's kind of cool about the NordVPN is that you can have all your stuff secure and encrypted, so that when you're out and about traveling, as many of us do, or you're in a coffee shop or wherever, you're in a public setting using your phone or your computer hooked up to a Wi-Fi there, it can encrypt it. So this, as it's going through, they're not going to be able to just simply snatch all your data and information at free will. I'm sure there's some crazy hacker guy that knows how to do it, and that's fine, but I'm sure it's not going to be nearly as easy and probably not as fruitful as it would be if you were unprotected. And so again, just something to consider. There's also a lot of cool uses for it. If you want to go to their website and check out more about it, you can go to their website at NordVPN. if you'd like to take advantage of the deal, they gave us a special deal. Again, they gave us the best deals, the best deals.
The greatest deal. You're better than I am.
I'm not. Yeah, there's a guy, Shane Gillen. You ever seen him? I think.
Yes.
Yeah, he's like all you have to do is just basically you talk like your hands are offbeat from what you're talking about, and he's like, and you just basically just talk like you repeat yourself, and then you talk about how you like, basically like you would say, we get the best deals. I was just telling Eugene that we were looking at this deal. It was the best deal. And that's just all.
It's the best.
Anyway, some of you guys are probably laughing at these. Some of you guys probably are really upset that we would make fun of him. I don't really,
make fun of everybody.
I make fun of everybody.
That's right.
I don't really care about politics.
No one's off limits.
That's right. So anyway, here we'll do for some of you guys. Let's do one for old Joe there. Right. We're going to tell you about this deal. I mean, the thing, man. Come on,
the thing.
Yeah, the thing.
Yeah,
there you go.
Oh, the thing.
Like you have no idea what I'm talking about. Just because the thing, man.
Nope.
Come on.
Nope.
Old corn pop. Anyway.
All right.
Now that we've pissed off
offended everyone,
we've offended everybody, everyone's constituencies, right?
If we were YouTube Live, our numbers would just start dwindling down very quickly.
Yeah,
even more than normal when the ads.
But the ones that are still left,
you're the special.
You're my people, because you're the people that are like me. That are like, we're not crazy, and I don't look to some politician to be my savior.
There we go.
That said,
all right.
Now moving on to the deal.
The
deal is
here's the deal.
It's a great deal.
We're never gonna get through this.
I can't help it.
We will never get another sponsor ever again. That's what's gonna happen.
No, it is a cool deal. So check this out. I never really had looked up pricing and stuff like that with VPNs. And when I looked at it, the pricing was already super affordable. But they've extended a sort of a couple cool things. So what they did was with the deal, it's if you sign up for one of their 1 year or 2 year plans, which you can pay monthly or you can pay in a lump sum, which the lump sum is not much. In one case, it's as low as like $288 a month. Like
$2.88.
$2.88. Yeah, not 200. $2.88. Very cheap. Less than a cup of coffee. So with that, you'll get 4 months for free. Pretty sweet. And then on top of that, you'll have a 30-day money back guarantee. So again, you can try it. You can see if you like it. You can see if it causes any problems for you, or if you can just like, hey, everything's running smooth and I'm protected. Fantastic. You can keep it. Or within that 30-day period, you can have your money, refunded to you. So again, there's really no risk to not try it if it's something you're interested in. So check it out at nordvpn.com. And if you want the discount and the 4 month free plus the money back guarantee /Chewjitsu, CHEWJITSU, nordvpn.com/Chewjitsu. And guys, if you want to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going to our Patreon at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. When you go to that website, you can obviously sign up as a member. And once you sign up as a member, you'll get access to all the content. You guys have probably heard about it. Again, one of the things that we'll be adding to that thing shortly is going to be some match breakdowns from the 2022 Worlds. Again, that'll be available there in the Patreon, or the only other place that the match breakdowns where I'll kind of be giving narration about what was going on and is to the best of my abilities is then we'll be going in, or that'll also be going into my gold medal game plan product, which some of you guys may have. Either one of those places, if you got it, you'll get it. Again, with the narration, one thing it's sort of an aside, this really has nothing to do with anything. I will tell you about the narration, and I'll be sort of telling you when I actually knew what was going on. I think sometimes some guy tagged me in a video, and it was like a white belts like match.
Yeah.
And he was like, and he was like narrating. He's like, here's what I was doing, guys. And I mean, it's wild and crazy, uncontrolled. And I'm looking at it and I was like, I remember my white belt matches. There was not that much thought going on in these places. I was just, you're acting on instinct and everything else. So, he's like, yeah, so here's what I was setting up. So during the, and I was like, bro, you're looking at this, and from hindsight, you're like trying to make it all fit, but in reality, you're reacting. So when I narrate it, I will tell you when I'm actually like, look, I just did this on impulse versus no, I actually planned to do this. But anyway, you'll have access to that at the patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And guys, also, if you want to join my email newsletter and get my daily email, you can do so by going to jujitsu.net/join, JOIN. When you go to that website, you'll get access to 3 free ebooks, and you'll also get my daily email newsletter. And again, one of the ebooks you will get access to is a game plan guide. So if you heard me talking about getting the game plan together and that sort of thing in this podcast, and you're like, I need to do that, then a great way to do that would be to go to my website, join the email newsletter, get that free ebook, the game plan guide, go through the exercises that I list in the book, make out your game plan guide, and then get the free email. And if you don't like the email, you can always unsubscribe and just keep the game plan guide for yourself. Again, no risk there. And so, guys, thank you so much for joining us on today's podcast. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you guys next week.